The soft glow of my laptop screen illuminated my face in the dimly lit living room as I reviewed the latest analytics for my YouTube channel. My fingers trembled slightly as I refreshed the page one more time, hardly daring to believe what I was seeing. After months of late nights, careful planning, and pouring my heart into every video, the notification I'd been waiting for had finally appeared. Your channel is now eligible for monetization. Papa. Papa. Jim's excited voice broke through my concentration as he bounded into the room, his dark hair still messy from his afternoon nap. At 7 years old, my son had inherited my delicate features but possessed an energy that seemed boundless. Did it happen? Did we get it? I turned to him, unable to contain the smile spreading across my face. Yes, Jim. We did it. His squeal of delight filled our small apartment as he launched himself into my arms. I caught him, laughing despite the tears that had begun to blur my vision. 4 years. 4 years since I'd lost my alpha, since the world had turned cold and empty. 4 years of struggling alone, of being ignored by in-laws who had never truly accepted me, of wondering how I would provide for this beautiful, mischievous child who meant everything to me. Does this mean we're rich now? Jim asked, his eyes wide with innocent hope. I chuckled, running my fingers through his soft hair. Not quite, my little troublemaker. But it means we're one step closer to being okay. It means all those videos we made together, all those cooking tutorials, those day-in-the-life vlogs, those craft projects. People are watching them and now we can earn a little money from it. Jim pulled back to look at me seriously, his small hands cupping my face in a gesture that reminded me achingly of his other father. Papa worked so hard. You deserve this. My heart swelled with love for this child who somehow understood so much despite his young age. After my alpha had passed, I'd made the difficult decision to stop my office job and find a way to work from home. Jim needed stability, needed a parent who could be there for him, especially when my in-laws had made it clear they had no interest in helping us. The money from my late husband's life insurance had helped, but it wouldn't last forever. YouTube had seemed like a distant dream when I'd started. My channel, Milliflex, had begun with shaky videos filmed on my phone, featuring simple content about my life as a single Omega parent. Cooking meals on a budget. Organizing our small space. Finding joy in the little things. Jim often appeared in the videos, his bright personality and funny comments quickly becoming a favorite among viewers. You know what this means, right? Jim said, wiggling out of my embrace with a determined expression that I'd learned to be wary of. What does it mean? I asked cautiously. Ice cream. At the park. You promised that when we got monetized, we'd celebrate properly. He was already pulling on my hand, dragging me toward the door. Jim, it's almost evening. Please, Papa? Please, please, please? We worked so hard. And you said we should celebrate our victories, even the small ones. He deployed his ultimate weapon, the puppy eyes that I could never resist. I sighed, knowing I was defeated before the battle had even begun. All right. Let me grab my wallet and your jacket. 20 minutes later, we were walking through the neighborhood park, Jim's hand firmly clasped in mine as he chattered excitedly about all the things we could do now that the channel was monetized. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the grass, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. Can we get the super deluxe sundae? With 3 scoops? Jim asked hopefully. Let's start with 2 scoops and see how we feel, I negotiated, smiling at his enthusiasm. The park was beautiful this time of day, relatively quiet with only a few joggers and other families enjoying the weather. We were making our way toward the ice cream vendor near the playground when Jim suddenly stopped, his grip on my hand tightening. Papa, what's that? He pointed toward a cluster of bushes near the edge of the park. What's what, sweetheart? There. I think someone's there. Without waiting for my response, Jim pulled away from me and ran toward the bushes. Jim? Wait. My heart leaped into my throat as I chased after him, every protective instinct flaring to life. You can't just run off like that. But Jim had already reached the bushes and had stopped, his small body frozen as he stared at something I couldn't yet see. Then, his voice pierced the peaceful evening. Papa. Papa, come quick. There's a man and he's bleeding. I reached Jim's side in seconds, my breath catching when I saw what had frightened him. A man, a large, muscular alpha based on his build and scent, was slumped against a tree partially hidden by the bushes. His dark suit was torn and stained with blood, and more blood had soaked through his white shirt on his left side. His face was pale but strikingly handsome even in distress, with sharp features and dark hair that fell across his forehead. Oh my God, I breathed, immediately dropping to my knees beside him. My hands hovered over his wounds, my mind racing. Jim, call emergency services. Now. But the man's eyes fluttered open, and his hand shot out with surprising strength to grab my wrist. No, he rasped, his voice rough with pain. No hospitals. No police. You're seriously injured. You need medical attention. I protested, trying to assess the wound. It looked like a knife wound, deep but possibly not fatal if treated quickly. I said no. His grip tightened, his dark eyes boring into mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. Please. There was something in his gaze, desperation mixed with a fierce pride, that made me hesitate. Jim had already pulled out my phone, his fingers hovering over the emergency number, looking to me for guidance. Papa? He asked uncertainly. I made a decision that probably wasn't wise, but something in my Omega instincts told me to trust the stranger. Put the phone away, Jim. We're going to help him ourselves. Are you insane? You don't even know him. The man's words were harsh, but I could hear the weakness beneath them. Probably, I admitted, already pulling off my cardigan. Jim, run to the vendor and get some bottles of water and napkins. Tell them it's an emergency. Quick. As Jim sprinted away, I pressed my cardigan against the man's wound, trying to slow the bleeding. He hissed in pain, his jaw clenching, but he didn't pull away. What's your name? I asked, trying to keep him conscious and alert. Does it matter? He ground out. It does if I'm going to help you. I'm Byum Suk and that's my son Jim. He was silent for a moment, his eyes studying my face with an unreadable expression. Kang Daewon, he finally said. Well, Kang Daewon, you're going to owe us a very good explanation for why you're bleeding in a park and refusing medical help, I said, checking the wound again. The bleeding was slowing, which was a good sign. Can you walk? I think so. My apartment is only 10 minutes from here. I have a first aid kit and I used to volunteer at a medical clinic before Jim was born. I can stitch this up if it's not too deep. Why would you help me? His question was genuine, confused even. I met his eyes again, those intense dark pools that seemed to see right through me. Because you need help and I can give it. That's reason enough. Jim returned with the water and napkins, his face worried but determined. Together we managed to clean the wound enough to apply pressure and help Daewon to his feet. He was much taller than me and even injured, his presence was overwhelming. His alpha scent, cedar and smoke with an undertone of something darker, was strong enough to make my Omega instincts flutter in a way they hadn't since my husband's death. The walk back to our apartment was slow and careful, with Daewon leaning heavily on me despite his attempts to maintain his pride. Jim hovered nearby, carrying my now blood-stained cardigan and watching our guest with curious eyes. Are you a bad guy? Jim asked suddenly, his childish directness making me wince. Jim? But Daewon laughed, a rough sound that turned into a cough. Would you believe me if I said no? Depends on if you're lying, Jim replied seriously. Smart kid, Daewon murmured, and I could have sworn I saw a hint of respect in his expression. Once we reached our apartment, I helped Daewon onto our sofa, immediately going to work with my first aid kit. Jim watched from the doorway as I carefully cut away the damaged shirt, revealing the wound more clearly. It's deep, but it missed anything vital, I assessed, cleaning it thoroughly. You were lucky. Lucky, he repeated, his eyes fixed on my face as I worked. That's not a word people usually associate with me. Well, you were lucky today. Now hold still. This is going to hurt. As I began to stitch the wound, Daewon's hand found mine, squeezing tightly but remaining silent through the pain. There was something intimate about this moment, this wounded alpha trusting me, an Omega stranger, with his vulnerability. Something that made my heart beat faster in a way I hadn't felt in years. Thank you, he said quietly when I'd finished bandaging the wound. Both of you. I'm in your debt. Just promise me you'll get proper medical attention if it gets worse, I said, washing my hands. And that you'll tell me who did this to you. His expression darkened. That's complicated. I'm sure it is. I handed him a glass of water and some pain medication. But you're in my home now and my son is here. If there's going to be danger following you, I need to know. Before he could answer, Jim piped up from the doorway. Papa, can he stay for dinner? He looks hungry. I looked at my son's hopeful face, then at the mysterious alpha on our sofa who had somehow disrupted our quiet life in the span of an hour. Logic told me to send him away as soon as possible, to protect Jim and myself from whatever trouble he was clearly involved in. But something deeper, something in my Omega nature that had been dormant for 4 years, was awakening. Something that recognized strength in this wounded man, that felt an inexplicable pull toward him. Would you like to stay for dinner, Daewon? I heard myself asking. His smile was small but genuine, transforming his harsh features into something almost gentle. I would like that very much. The next week passed in a surreal blur. Daewon had insisted on leaving that first night after dinner, despite my concerns about his injury. But the next morning, there had been a knock on our door, and there he stood, better dressed in a clean suit, looking every bit the powerful alpha he clearly was, holding a ridiculously expensive fruit basket and wearing an expression that was almost sheepish. "I wanted to thank you properly," he'd said. "And to apologize for the intrusion. May I take you and Jim to lunch?" That lunch had turned into dinner the next day. Then coffee while Jim was at school. Then a visit to the aquarium that had Jim squealing with delight. Somehow, without either of us really planning it, Day One had become a constant presence in our lives. He never explicitly told me what he did for a living, but I wasn't naive. The expensive cars that sometimes dropped him off, the way people deferred to him when we were out, the phone calls he would step away to take in hushed, commanding tones, all of it painted a picture I wasn't sure I wanted to fully see. But with Jim and me he was different. Gentle. Patient. He would sit and watch Jim's favorite cartoons without complaint, play endless games of cards, and listen with genuine interest as Jim explained complicated theories about dinosaurs or superheroes. And with me he was attentive in a way that made my heart ache. "You're thinking too hard again," Day One's voice broke through my thoughts. I looked up from my laptop where I'd been staring at my YouTube analytics without really seeing them. We were in my living room, Jim asleep in his bedroom after an exhausting day at school. Day One had stopped by with takeout as had become his habit. "Just work stuff," I said, trying to smile. He moved closer, sitting beside me on the sofa. "Talk to me." "It's nothing really. Just, there's this other channel called Boys and Hearts. They've been stealing my content, re-uploading my videos almost frame for frame. I've reported them multiple times to YouTube, but nothing's happening. I even sent them an email asking them to stop, but they just keep doing it." I could hear the frustration in my own voice, feel the familiar burn of helpless anger. This happened to my previous channel too. It got so bad I had to start over completely, and now it's happening again. I work so hard on this content, Day One. Every video takes hours of filming, editing, coming up with ideas. And someone is just stealing it, making money off my work, off my life with Jim. Day One's expression had darkened as I spoke, his jaw clenching in a way that should have frightened me but instead made me feel protected. "Show me," he said quietly. I pulled up the Boys and Hearts channel and we watched together as video after video. My videos, my voice, my son's face, played with only minor edits to try to avoid detection. The channel even had more subscribers than mine, had monetized my hard work while I'd been struggling. "This is theft," Day One said, his voice cold. "Plain and simple." "I know, but what can I do? YouTube doesn't seem to care about smaller creators, and I don't have money for lawyers or BM Sook." He turned to face me fully, taking my hands in his. The touch sent warmth through me, my Omega instincts responding to his alpha presence in ways I'd been trying to ignore. "I need to tell you something. About who I am. What I do. I know you're involved in things," I said carefully. "I'm not stupid, Day One. I'm the head of a criminal organization," he said bluntly. "One of the largest in the country. I deal in things that aren't legal, that aren't moral by most standards. People fear me for good reason. I should have been afraid. Should have pulled my hands away, asked him to leave, protected my son from this dangerous man. But instead I found myself asking, why are you telling me this? Because over this past week, I've realized something." His thumbs stroked over my knuckles, his dark eyes intense on mine. "You and Jim, you've given me something I didn't know I was missing. Warmth. Peace. A reason to smile that isn't about power or control. I'm in love with you, BM Sook. Both of you. I want to be part of your life if you'll have me. But you deserve to know the truth before you decide." My breath caught. "Day One. Let me handle this channel that's stealing from you," he continued. "Let me show you what I can do to protect you and Jim. I can track their IP address, find out who's behind it. I can make sure they never steal from you or anyone else again. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Please let me do this for you." Before I could respond, we heard a sound from Jim's room. Both of us turned to see my son standing in the doorway, rubbing his eyes sleepily. But there was a gleam in his expression that I knew all too well. He'd been awake and listening. "You love Papa?" Jim asked Day One directly. "Yes," Day One answered without hesitation. "And you too, little troublemaker." Jim studied him for a long moment, then grinned. "Good. Because Papa needs someone strong to protect him. But you don't need to track anyone, Day One. I already took care of it." "What?" I stood up, alarmed. "Jim, what did you do?" My 7-year-old son pulled out my phone. When had he taken it? And showed us the screen. The Boys and Hearts channel was gone. Completely deleted. And on the community tab of my own channel, there was a new post. "Nobody messes with my Papa's channel and goes free." "Jim, how did you?" I stared at my son in shock. Jim shrugged, looking far too pleased with himself. "I've been teaching myself coding and hacking from YouTube tutorials. It wasn't that hard to get into their account. They had a really weak password, password 123, can you believe it? Day one burst out laughing, a genuine sound of delight that filled our small apartment. This kid is incredible. I didn't know whether to be proud or horrified. Jim, you can't just hack into people's accounts. They were stealing from you, Papa. Someone had to do something. Jim's expression turned defensive. You always tell me to stand up for what's right. He's not wrong, Day one said, still grinning. Though maybe we should channel those skills more constructively in the future. I sank back onto the sofa, overwhelmed by everything. The confession of love, the revelation about Day one's true identity, my son's apparently prodigious hacking abilities. Still, Day one continued, his expression turning serious again, someone needs to be properly dealt with. Jim may have taken down the channel, but whoever is behind it needs to understand there are real consequences for stealing and preying on creators. What are you going to do? I asked quietly. Let me worry about that, he said, pulling me closer. Right now I need to know. Can you accept me? All of me? Can you give us a chance? I looked at this alpha who had somehow crashed into our lives, who had shown us nothing but kindness and protection despite the darkness he carried. Then I looked at Jim, who was watching us with hopeful eyes. Papa, can we keep him? Jim asked, and the innocent question made both Day one and me laugh. I think. I took a deep breath, letting myself acknowledge the feelings that had been growing all week. I think I'd like that, if we can take it slow. For Jim's sake. For Jim's sake, Day one agreed, but his smile was warm and promising. Jim cheered and launched himself at both of us, and suddenly we were a tangle of limbs on the sofa, laughing together. For the first time in 4 years, my apartment felt complete. Like a family. A week later, Day one had kept his promise. He tracked down the person behind the Boys and Hearts channel. A man in his 30s who ran multiple content-stealing operations, too lazy and entitled to create anything of his own, making a comfortable living off the hard work of struggling creators like me. Day one didn't tell me all the details of what happened, but the man had made a public apology video that went viral, confessing to his theft and apologizing specifically to me and dozens of other creators he'd stolen from. His fingers had been injured in an accident, Day one had told me with a meaningful look, ensuring he wouldn't be able to continue his schemes. I probably should have been horrified by the implications, but I found I couldn't muster much sympathy for someone who had made a career out of stealing from people struggling to make ends meet. More importantly, the exposure had actually helped my channel. Milliflex had gained thousands of new subscribers who had seen the apology video and wanted to support the original creator. Sponsorship offers were coming in. For the first time since my husband's death, I could see a stable financial future for Jim and me. But what mattered more than any of that was the relationship growing between the three of us. Day one had truly become part of our lives, and Jim adored him. Watching them together, whether they were building elaborate block towers or conspiring on pranks to play on me, filled my heart in ways I hadn't thought possible anymore. It was a quiet evening when everything changed. Jim was at a sleepover with a school friend, the first one I'd felt comfortable allowing, and Day one and I were alone in my apartment for the first time since we'd started, whatever this was between us. You're nervous, Day one observed, setting down his wine glass as we sat together on the sofa. Is it that obvious? I tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. Biam Suk. He turned to face me fully, his hand coming up to cup my cheek. We don't have to do anything you're not ready for. It's not that I'm not ready, I said softly. It's been 4 years since I've been with anyone. Since my husband died, I never thought I'd feel this way about someone again. And you're so different from him. Stronger, more intense, more dangerous, he supplied with a slight smile. I was going to say overwhelming, I corrected, leaning into his touch. But in a good way. You make me feel safe, even though logically I know you're probably the most dangerous person I've ever met. I would never hurt you, he said fiercely. Or Jim. You have to know that. I do know that. And I did. Despite everything, I trusted this alpha completely. Kiss me, Day one. He did, and it was different from any kiss I'd experienced before. My husband had been gentle, sweet, tender in all things. Day one kissed me like I was precious, but also like I was strong enough to handle his intensity. His lips claimed mine with a hunger that sent heat pooling through my body, his hands tangling in my hair as he deepened the kiss. I gasped against his mouth, my fingers clutching at his shirt as my Omega instincts sang with recognition. This alpha, this strong, protective, dangerous man, he was mine. Bedroom, I managed to say when we broke apart for air. We should, bedroom. Day one lifted me easily, and I wrapped my legs around his waist as he carried me down the hall, kissing me the entire way. We fell onto my bed together, a tangle of eager hands and breathless kisses. Tell me if you need me to stop, he murmured against my neck, his lips trailing fire across my skin. Tell me if it's too much. Don't stop, I whispered back, helping him remove his shirt. His body was all hard muscle and power, marked with scars that told stories I might never fully know. Please don't stop. Our clothes disappeared piece by piece, each new area of exposed skin explored with hands and lips and whispered words. Day one was attentive and careful, making sure I was comfortable, that I wanted this, even as his own desire was evident. When he finally settled between my legs, his length pressing against me, I felt a moment of nervousness. But then he kissed me again, deep and claiming, and whispered, I love you, Biam Suk. I'll spend every day proving that to you if you'll let me. I love you too, I breathed and meant it with everything in me. He entered me slowly, carefully, letting me adjust to the feeling of being filled again. After so long. The sensation was intense, bordering on overwhelming, but in the best possible way. I felt connected to him, bound in a way that went beyond physical. Okay? He asked, his forehead pressed to mine, his body trembling with the effort of restraint. More than okay, I assured him, wrapping my legs around his hips. Move, please. He did, setting a rhythm that was both tender and passionate, each thrust sending waves of pleasure through my body. His length filled me completely, hitting spots that made me gasp and cling to him. We moved together like we'd been made for this, for each other. So beautiful, he murmured, his lips finding mine again. So perfect. Mine. Yours, I agreed, lost in the sensation, in the emotion, in the rightness of being with this alpha. The pleasure built slowly, intensely, until I was trembling beneath him, my fingers digging into his back as I approached the edge. Day one's movements became more urgent, more desperate, and when he reached between us to stroke me, I shattered, crying out his name as waves of pleasure crashed over me. He followed moments later, his own release shuddering through him as he buried his face in my neck, breathing my name like a prayer. We lay tangled together afterward, hearts racing, skin cooling in the night air. Day one pulled me close and I curled into his chest, feeling safer and more content than I had in years. Move in with us, I found myself saying into the comfortable silence. You're already here most of the time anyway. Jim would love it. And I would love it. I felt him smile against my hair. Nothing would make me happier. We'll have to be careful, I continued. I don't want Jim exposed to the dangerous parts of your life. Never, he promised. I keep that world separate. With you and Jim, I'm just day one. Just a man who loves you both more than anything. Just day one is more than enough, I assured him, pressing a kiss to his chest. We talked into the night, making plans for our future together. How we would tell Jim officially. How day one would gradually move his things in. How we would navigate this new family dynamic. It felt surreal but also completely natural, like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. When I finally fell asleep in his arms, I dreamed of happy things for the first time in years. Of a future where Jim had a strong alpha figure to look up to, where I wasn't struggling alone, where love and laughter filled our home. The next morning, when Jim came home from his sleepover and found day one making breakfast in our kitchen wearing one of my aprons, my son just grinned knowingly and said, "Does this mean we get to keep him for real now, Papa?" "Yes," I said, pulling both my son and my alpha into a hug. "For real now." "Good," Jim declared. "Because he makes way better pancakes than you do, Papa." We all laughed, and as I looked at my small, perfect family, born not from blood or tradition but from choice and love, I felt my heart finally heal from the grief I'd carried for so long. This was my second chance at happiness, and I was going to hold on to it with everything I had. 6 months later. The apartment was quiet except for the soft sound of rain pattering against the windows. Jim was spending the weekend at his friend's house, something that had become a regular occurrence now that I felt more secure about his social life. Day one had been living with us for months now, and our little family had settled into a comfortable rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. I was in our bedroom, I still got a thrill thinking of it that way, changing into comfortable clothes after a long day of filming content for Milliflex. The channel had grown beyond my wildest dreams, and I'd even been able to hire a part-time editor to help with the workload. Life was good. Better than good. Strong arms wrapped around my waist from behind, and I felt Day One's lips press against my neck. "You've been working too hard again," he murmured, his breath warm against my skin. "Says the man who came home at midnight 3 times this week," I countered, but I leaned back into his embrace, enjoying the solid warmth of him. Touché. His hands splayed across my stomach, holding me close. "But I'm home now. Jim's away for the night. And I've been thinking about you all day." I turned in his arms to face him, my hands coming up to rest on his chest. Even after 6 months, the sight of him still made my heart skip a beat. This powerful, dangerous alpha who looked at me like I was the most precious thing in his world. "Have you now?" I asked, a smile playing at my lips. "Constantly," he said, his voice dropping lower as his hands moved to my hips. How you laugh at Jim's jokes. How you bite your lip when you're editing videos. How beautiful you look when you're sleeping next to me. How you feel in my arms. His words sent warmth flooding through me, my omega instincts responding to the desire in his voice. Day 1. I love you, Byum Suk, he said, cupping my face gently. Every single day I fall more in love with you. With the life we're building together. I love you too, I whispered, my eyes stinging with happy tears. So much it sometimes scares me. Don't be scared. He kissed me softly, tenderly. I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me. Good, I said against his lips, deepening the kiss. The kiss grew more heated, more urgent. Day 1's hands moved under my shirt, his touch sending shivers across my skin. We moved toward the bed, clothes disappearing along the way, until we were skin to skin, heart to heart. He laid me down gently on the bed, his body covering mine as he kissed me with a passion that never failed to make me breathless. His hands explored my body like he was memorizing every curve, every sensitive spot that made me gasp. You're so beautiful, he murmured, his lips trailing down my neck, across my collarbone. So perfect. I arched into his touch, my fingers threading through his hair. Stop talking and touch me properly, I demanded, making him chuckle. So impatient, he teased, but his hand moved lower, wrapping around me and stroking in a way that made my breath catch. Is this what you want? Yes, I gasped, my hips moving into his touch. Day 1, please. He continued his ministrations, his touch skilled and knowing, bringing me closer to the edge before pulling back, making me whimper with need. When he finally reached for the oil on the nightstand, I was trembling with anticipation. His fingers prepared me carefully, thoroughly, his other hand continuing to stroke me as he worked. The dual sensations had me gasping his name, clutching at the sheets beneath me. Ready? He asked, his voice rough with desire as he positioned himself above me. Always ready for you, I assured him, pulling him down for another kiss. He entered me slowly, his length filling me inch by inch until I felt completely joined with him. We both groaned at the sensation, pausing to simply feel the connection between us. Okay? He asked, his forehead pressed to mine. Perfect, I breathed. Move, love. Please move. He did, setting a gentle rhythm that was both tender and deeply satisfying. Each movement of his length inside me sent pleasure coursing through my body, building slowly but steadily. His hands were everywhere, caressing my face, stroking my sides, interlacing with my fingers. I love you, he whispered between kisses. My beautiful Omega. My everything. Love you, I managed to say, lost in the sensation of him, in the emotion of being so completely connected to this alpha who had changed my life in every way. The pleasure built gradually, a slow burn that consumed me from the inside out. Day 1's movements became slightly more urgent, his breathing heavier, but he maintained that perfect rhythm that had me climbing higher and higher. When he reached between us to stroke my length in time with his movements, I felt myself approaching the peak. Day 1, I know, love. Let go. I've got you. His words pushed me over the edge, pleasure washing over me in waves as I cried out his name. He followed moments later, his own release shuddering through him as he buried his face in my neck, breathing hard. We stayed connected for a long moment, both of us catching our breath, savoring the closeness. When he finally shifted to lie beside me, he immediately pulled me into his arms, holding me close. That never gets old, I said with a contented sigh, curling into his chest. He laughed softly, pressing a kiss to my forehead. Never. I could spend forever like this with you. Forever sounds good, I agreed, feeling sleep beginning to tug at me. Though we should probably clean up first. In a minute, he murmured, his arms tightening around me. Right now, I just want to hold you. I smiled, pressing a kiss over his heart. Outside, the rain continued to fall, creating a peaceful rhythm. Inside, I was wrapped in the arms of the alpha I loved, in the home we'd built together, with a beautiful son sleeping peacefully elsewhere knowing he was loved. My life hadn't turned out anything like I'd expected. 4 years ago, I'd been a grieving widow struggling to survive. Now, I was a successful content creator, a happy Omega, and part of a family built on love and choice rather than obligation. What are you thinking? Day 1 asked, his fingers trailing lazily up and down my spine. Just how grateful I am. For you. For Jim. For this life we have together. I never thought I'd be this happy again. Me neither, he admitted quietly. I spent so long in the darkness I forgot what warmth felt like. Then you and Jim showed me. Saved me, really? We saved each other, I corrected, looking up at him. That's what family does. His smile was soft and full of love. Family, he repeated like the word was precious. Yes, that's exactly what we are. Later, after we'd cleaned up and changed the sheets, We lay tangled together under the blankets talking about everything and nothing. Plans for Jim's upcoming birthday. Ideas for new video content. Dreams for the future. I want to make this official, Day One said suddenly. I want to marry you, Biam Suk. I want Jim to have my name legally, not just in our hearts. I want the world to know you're mine and I'm yours. My breath caught, tears springing to my eyes. Are you proposing to me right now? In bed after we just made love? Is that not romantic enough? He looked genuinely concerned. I can do it differently. I'll plan something elaborate, get down on one knee. I stopped his words with a kiss. This is perfect. You're perfect. And yes, Day One. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to everything. His answering smile was radiant and he kissed me again, deep and claiming and full of promise. I'll take care of you both, he vowed. For the rest of my life, I'll make sure you and Jim have everything you need. Everything you deserve. We already have everything we need, I assured him. We have each other. That's more than enough. As I drifted off to sleep in his arms, I thought about the park where Jim had found this wounded alpha months ago. What had seemed like a crisis then had become the greatest blessing of our lives. Fate, chance, destiny, whatever it was, I was grateful for it. Tomorrow we would tell Jim about the engagement. He would probably demand to help plan the wedding, insist on being the best man, and generally cause his usual mischievous chaos. And we would love every minute of it. But tonight, it was just Day One and me, wrapped in each other's arms, planning our future together. A future full of love, laughter, and the warmth of family. My second chance at happiness had turned into something even more beautiful than I'd ever imagined possible. And I knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning of our story together. Forever yours, I whispered into the darkness. Forever yours, Day One echoed back, his arms tightening around me. And with those words we sealed our promise to each other, a promise of love, devotion, and a lifetime of happiness together.